Procrastination. Procrastination is the action of unnecessarily and voluntarily delaying or postponing something, despite knowing that there will be negative consequences for doing so. I bet a lot of game devs can relate when it comes to delaying features, which are obviously quite important, but also scary or tedious to implement. So today, I'm going to show you how I started to add one of these scary features to Exo Colony, which was quite overdue. A proper building system. Besides that, I also added another secret Discord feature voted by the community on my Discord server. Before we start, if you enjoy these kinds of videos, feel free to subscribe to this channel and hit that like button. Enough of the advertising, let's jump right into the video. I wanted to add a proper build system to Exo Colony for quite some time. At the moment, players are only able to put 1x1 tile buildings right in front of them. This works as a quick build system and I want to keep it in the game. But there should be a faster and more user-friendly way to let the players set up a more complex conveyor belt, for example. Before I could really program the feature, I needed to take care of some UI tasks. At the moment, there is the HUD UI overlay, but for the build system, we need another kind of build UI overlay. And then I also want to have some kind of main menu from where the players could then switch to the building mode or access an options menu. So I started to refactor my UI system and made it so that I could press the start button to hide the HUD overlay and show a main menu. I first applied the new hide functionality to the bottom inventory, and of course it did not work correctly right from the start. But that was an easy fix, and now I had a smoothly tweened animation for hiding UI elements. What I then found really important was to have a cool finger sprite for the upcoming main menu. You know, like in the Final Fantasy games. So I pixeled the finger sprite and then implemented the main menu in Unity. Works like a charm. Because I'm not always good at focusing on the important tasks at hand, I decided to polish the finger instead of working on the actual building feature. Not a smart decision, but now the finger has a shadow and is wobbling around. Now it was time to focus on the build system UI. I went into Sprite and started to pixel a mockup. Since the player needs an overview of all the buildable items, there still has to be some kind of inventory. Then there is a field for the item's details, so the players know what kind of structure they are going to build. I then also added 2 buttons or icons to change between building and destruction mode. Now it was time to work on some kind of visible grid that I could lay over the world, so it is easy to see where the player is allowed to build and where other structures or game objects are blocking possible new buildings. An important design decision I made at this point was that I want the player only to be able to build in a certain radius around the current position. Otherwise, the player's avatar would be way less important and the game would turn more into some kind of strategy game. Now that I was done with the art, the actual implementation process started. After I did some magic programming, I was able to show the build UI, fill the inventory with only the buildable items and also apply the grid overlay. Now I did not make the grid overlay disappear after leaving the build menu, but I guess you could also call that a feature because it is somewhat funny, and funny is entertainment, and entertainment is all video games are about. So I was quite happy. The next iteration step made it possible to update the grid overlay in correlation to the current selected item. Of course, a bridge tile can only be placed on water and other buildings only on land, so now the system takes that into account. Now it only took some more programming to reach a state which offers actually some kind of functionality. It is now possible to choose a selected building, move a cursor around to select where you want to place it, and then actually place it there. Amazing! The next step would be to add the functionality to also build buildings which are bigger than 1x1 tiles, like the furnace or the wood factory. Oh, and of course the functionality to destroy buildings. But that's something I will add and show in a future video. For the moment, I'm quite happy with the current state of this first iteration of a build system. It is now much easier and comfortable to set up a conveyor belt and also power systems. What's now also easier is to trap the player's avatar again. So I need to find a way to make sure the player has always some kind of possibility to get out of these situations. If you have any good ideas, please write it in the comments. Now that the main feature for this devlog is done, it's time to take a look at this devlog's secret Discord feature. As always, I asked the lovely people on my Discord server to vote for a smaller feature, visual effect or piece of content I should add to the game. This time the community had to choose between a water shader, a wooden fence, a footstep visual effect and rain/cloud visual effects. And the winner of this week's secret Discord feature is rain and cloud visual effects. Awesome! So, now I had the pleasure to add some neat visual effects to the game. I started by looking at different top-down pixel art games and researching how they managed to achieve this kind of effect. I decided to start with the rain effect and went into Sprite to pixel some kind of raindrop sprite. Then I went into Unity and started to set up a first particle effect which would spawn raindrops and is attached to the camera. The raindrops spawn in world space, so they don't move with the camera as the player moves around. But to make it look like the rain is actually hitting the ground, I also needed a water splash animation. So I set up another particle effect and let that spawn a really simple animated splash particle. To wrap it all up, I also looked for a copyright-free rain loop on freesounds.org and added that to the game. So let's check out the complete rain experience. Now to the second part of the effect. Clouds. I started by drawing some placeholder clouds in Sprite, so I had something to play around with. Now I had to think about how I wanted to add the clouds to the game, so I said to myself, why not another particle effect? So I tried to achieve something cool with this approach, and what can I say? It did work to some degree, but never like I wanted it to. My main problem was that two overlapping clouds would kinda add up, and I was not in the mood to write a shader just to solve this particular issue. But when I thought about shaders, I had another idea. Why not create a cloud texture and then let that scroll in world space using a super simple shader? I liked that idea a lot, and so I went into Sprite and drew a very rough cloud texture. Then I hopped into Shader Graph and built the shader I needed for my approach. Of course, it did not work right away like I wanted it to, but therefore the shader produced some quite entertaining results. After some more iterations, I was able to get the shader right, and here you can see how it works. The texture is scrolling over the sprite renderer in relation to the world space. Now all that was left was to paint a nicer looking cloud texture. So let's have a look at the final rain and cloud visual effect. I have to say, I like it a lot. At the moment, I'm thinking if it would be smart to make the clouds affect the solar panels and their power output. From a logic standpoint, it would make totally sense, but then it would also be quite complex to check for every solar panel if it's currently under a cloud. So, I don't know. What do you think about that? Feel free to write me your opinion on this in the comments. And also, think about joining my Discord server, where you can vote for the next secret Discord feature I have to add to the game. And that's already it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. We will see each other soon in another video. Until then, have a good time and goodbye.